Woman, in order to survive, actually planned to bury herself alive using high tech. As a laser beam scanned across her body, a layer of airtight film covered her completely. Even her head was finally sealed shut. She thought her life would now enter a state of hibernation, but unexpectedly the hibernation pod malfunctioned halfway through. A strong sense of suffocation quickly overwhelmed her. The woman struggled with all her strength, but didn't expect the thin layer of film to be so incredibly strong. Seeing that she was about to suffocate to death, she quickly opened her mouth wide, and finally tore a hole in the film on her face. Once her breathing returned to normal, she hurried to pull out all the tubes and devices connected to her. Only then did the lights inside the pod turn on, and the smart assistant in front of her was activated. The smart assistant reminded her the oxygen level inside the pod was only 35%, but at this point the woman had no memory of what had happened. The cramped space and messy devices on her body made her feel anxious and uneasy, but the smart assistant reminded her this would only increase the oxygen consumption inside the pod. But right now the woman couldn't care less. She urgently wanted to know what had happened. Suddenly a memory of being wheeled into a hospital flashed in her mind. If she was put here because of an illness, there should be medical staff watching outside the pod. So the woman shouted desperately, trying to tell people outside she had woken up early. But as the oxygen level kept dropping sharply, she still received no response. She had no choice but to force herself to calm down and look for another way to escape. The woman started trying to communicate with the smart assistant. At this moment she desperately wanted to know her identity, but the smart assistant told her she was number 267. Then it projected a hologram so she could see her own face, but this still didn't help her remember anything. Then she suddenly realized maybe the smart assistant could open the pod door directly, so she immediately gave the command to unlock the hibernation program, and the system confirmed it was starting the process. But the next second, the smart assistant asked her to enter a password.
Je l'ai pas!
Attente du code d'autorisation.
J'ai pas le code, j'ai pas le code!
Seeing that this method wouldn't work, the woman then thought of asking the smart assistant to call the police. This time she finally saw hope. The call was quickly connected, but the woman had no idea where she was being held. Even stranger, the police said they couldn't trace her location. The woman refused to give up this only chance to seek help. She searched all around inside the pod, and actually found a serial number. But after police investigation, the equipment with that number had been destroyed 3 years ago. The woman immediately became anxious again. Her blood pressure and pulse spiked rapidly, but the smart assistant warned her, if this continued, the oxygen that could originally last 72 minutes would now only last 40 minutes. So the woman forced herself to calm down once more, hoping to recall more memories and help the police locate her sooner. But at the critical moment, her signal with the police was suddenly lost. When she tried to call back, the line kept saying the number was invalid. The woman lost control again, and the oxygen level dropped to 29%. At this point, the smart assistant made an assessment, concluding her survival rate was nearly zero. The next second, an 8-meter long needle suddenly emerged.